Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. And what you're about to see is a pre-recorded training session we did over in the United States. But be assured that a lot of the material that we cover is really applicable to any automotive application. So just be aware that yes, it is a lot of North American vehicles, but they will apply a lot of the same principles apply over in the UK as well. Now, if you do have any questions, if you're watching this during the premiere, you can just leave it in the chat. We'll be monitoring live chat. If you're watching this after the premiere, then just feel free to leave a comment underneath the video and we'll get to those as we can as well. So my name is Jason Gabrinas. I'm one of Snap-on's diagnostic technical trainers. I've been in the training department since 2013, traveling around North America, helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before I did that, it was a couple years as a diagnostic sales rep at Snap-on, so I had 30 different franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they serviced in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic needs. Then before I did that, it was 8 years at Subaru, so I worked in a dealership, and over time, I guess, just became the default diag guy in the shop. So I always ended up having the drivability problems, the intermittent problems, the weird wiring problems that would show up on those cars. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all those weird head scratcher type cars that would come into my bay. Then before that, bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been a little over 25 years under hood experience for me. Now our topic today is it's a new year, right? We're starting off 2024. So the first live session of 2024. And we're also starting a new series this week. So it's OEM specific trainings. We're going to go through the vast majority of the OEMs that we cover on the scan tool. And we're going to talk about maybe some weird quirks, if you want to call them that, or something that's really you're not going to find on other manufacturers. So if you work on just a single manufacturer like I did, in a dealership or something like that, or you work at a aftermarket specialty shop that only works on one type of vehicle, you get another brand that comes in, you might not be familiar with some of those weird, wild things that can happen. And if you work on the same vehicle over and over and over again, you'll end up learning those. Oh yeah, when it throws this code, check these two things, and it's probably this, right? So there's always those shortcuts that we end up coming up with in the bay, and hopefully we'll be able to add some of these to your repertoire when it comes to these different manufacturers. So this course we're doing Ford, and then in a couple of weeks we're doing Toyota, and a couple of weeks we're doing BMW. So we're really doing it by sales volume, North American sales volume. So as we go, they'll be getting fewer and fewer vehicles on the road, but Ford is the number one sold vehicle in North America for quite many years, and actually, really, the F-150 is the number one selling vehicle in America by a lot, by a long shot. First, let's talk about Ford, as a company. Let's go back in history, and Ford probably has one of your longer histories when it comes to manufacturers, especially in the United States, for sure. And this guy, Henry Ford, there. He started off his company in 1901, and it was called at the time, the Henry Ford Motor Company. Shortly thereafter, in 1902, it was changed to the Cadillac Motor Company, which he then sold the rights to, I guess. And then in 1903, it became the Ford Motor Company, which it still is today. He bought a factory, and funny enough, early investors in Ford were actually the Dodge brothers, who would end up going out on their own and, of course, starting Dodge. So a lot, maybe like a close knit community, I would say. I'm not sure if it's that's the right word for it, because there's probably a lot of competition too. But I just thought that was an interesting little tidbit that the Dodge brothers are actually early investors in Ford. And of course, we know the most famous Ford back then was the Model T. Back then, came out in 1908. Then in 1913, Ford opened the first moving assembly line, which he's also famous for, the assembly line there. And that allowed them to make many, many more vehicles in a day, which allowed them to sell it. If I back up a slide there, it allowed them to sell them for $650 per unit. So that's efficiency led to productivity in that case. And if you really think about it, we're all about efficiency here as well. We want to try and make you a quicker, better diagnostic person. So that's what we're trying to do here. And then, funny enough, 2018. I know we're skipping a lot of history there, but it's pretty much they made and sold cars in between. So in 2018, Ford announced it will no longer sell cars in the North American market, except for the Mustang. They're going to focus on trucks, SUVs, and EVs, which would be their more profitable models. And of course, the Mustang EV is the only one they're going to be focusing on over here. They do still sell cars globally: UK, Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia. They still have like the Fiestas and the Focuses and cars like that, the smaller units, plus the smaller SUVs as well. Just kind of starting over. I was just in Australia a couple weeks ago, and they're just starting to get the larger trucks, F-150s, 250s over there. So they will be selling them over there as well. Um, so speaking of top models, speaking of the F-150, spoiler alert, the F Series is the number one selling vehicle, and this is a sales ranking for the last 10 years, so 2013 to 2023. The F Series overwhelmingly by many, many miles, the number one seller for Ford, and most of those are the F-150 as well. It's like not even close for the top 10 manufacturers even. So the F Series is number one, then the Ford Escape, Explorer, the Fusion, the Edge, the Transit, the Focus, Mustang, Expedition, and the E Series vans. So we can see how that covers a decent swath of their current lineup and their past lineup over the last 10 years. There we can see quite a few different ones. So I just decided to pick kind of some of the peak or near peak years for some of these vehicles, and we'll dive in a little bit more when we go live. We'll dive into these three specific vehicles. But one of the top selling years roundabout for the F-150 was 2018 in North America. So this 2018 F-150 is the 13th generation of the F-150, or I think they're counting even back to the F-100 days. In this year, it was also that start of the all aluminum body. Everybody was talking about the aluminum beds on these trucks, right? So they're all aluminum. They're much lighter. Everything on that was aluminum except for the firewall. That was steel. In 2018, it was a mid-generation refresh. They changed a little bit of the body styling on that. Offered as far as engines, because usually this is where we're going to come into. It's not usually a problem with the model. Sometimes I suppose you're going to find that throughout as we go through this journey, but it's usually with the engine, right? So if they use the same engine in multiple vehicles and it has one failure, it's probably going to have that same failure in a different vehicle. And I think you'll see that holds true. But it was a 2.7 liter EcoBoost, 3-liter Power Stroke diesel, which was new for that time as well, 3.3 liter naturally aspirated, 3.5 liter EcoBoost, and a 5-liter naturally aspirated, which was the most popular engine of that year. Also offered a 6-speed and a 10-speed automatic transmissions. No standard transmission options anymore. And I think you'll find that's pretty hard to find on most manufacturers nowadays, trying to find a standard transmission is like a needle in a haystack, but they are still out there. Another representative model would be the 2016 Escape. So that was the number 2 overall sales for Ford, and around 2016 is when the sales kind of peaked. So at this time, that was the 3rd generation of the Escape, offered a 1.6 liter EcoBoost, a 2 liter EcoBoost, and the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated engine, that Duratec engine that's been around forever. So, that's been back years and years. Used to have them in the Fusions and the Focuses back in the early 2000s. So, 6-speed transmission only, automatic, of course, and known globally outside of the US and Canada as the Ford Kuga. So if you're watching from any of those places, we're talking about an Escape, we're talking about a Kuga. It's pretty much the same thing. I know overseas they also use a lot more diesel engines, but they do have the EcoBoost. And then another representative would be the 2018 Focus. Now, this wasn't the top 3 of the top 3 sellers, but this was the last year that they built the Focus in the United States. So 2018 was the last model year you could find it in North America. I suppose a few 2019s did sneak out, but 2018 is as far as it went. So it is the 3rd generation of the Focus. It offered a 1 liter EcoBoost, a little 3-cylinder, 2 liter EcoBoost, 2.3 liter EcoBoost, 2 liter naturally aspirated engine, and a 33.5 kilowatt hour electric engine or drivetrain in there as well. 6-speed transmission only, and last year was available in North America. So let's get to some common issues. So kind of across the board, Engine agnostic, I would say. Misfires, misfires, misfires. Lots of Fords with misfires out there. And to that end, we have developed many new tests that are specific to Ford that we are going to talk about here in a little bit that address misfire issues on Fords and try to make them easier to diagnose. Also, in the diesel V8s, your power strokes, especially the earlier ones, they have a lot of fuel injector issues on those as well, which also special tools to get those out. And if we think about misfires as well, like the 5.4 Triton engine, those were pretty famous for having lots of misfires and being very difficult to get the spark plugs out. There's actually special kits that we make for tools for that. So yeah, if you think misfire is not a problem on a Ford, yeah, I don't think you worked on any at that point. There's tons of misfire. And then timing and VVT issues as well on the newer ones. We'll see as we dive into some of these top codes on some of these vehicles. It's going to be cam sensor issues or VVT faults, oil pressure faults, things of that nature causing them. So that's really your top three that we're find for issues. For example, on misfires again. So Ford had to come out with a bulletin because there was lots of misfires on their vehicles, and when they would get the coils back under warranty, because if you replace a part under warranty, most manufacturers are the same about this. They're usually going to want that part back because they're going to want to look at it and they're going to want to see, hey, what do we have a common failure here? Do we have a common problem? What's going on? So Ford's getting these coils back under warranty for misfire, and sure enough, they're testing them, and a lot of them are testing good. Like, whoa, what's going on here? So they said, all right, this is for the dealership technicians, of course, because they'd be working under warranty. And they say, all right, you need to do this test on these coils, and you need to send us a screenshot of what the scope pattern looked like in order for us to actually pay your claim, right, and warranty your claim. So here's doing this test. Here's a pattern of what a good one looks like. Here's one that's about to fail, and there's one that's completely failed. Now, the beauty of scope, one of the beauty things about scope that I like is you don't really need to know what exactly is going on, even though they do explain it. But I know that looks good and that ain't good. You can pretty much tell right off the bat whether or not you have a failed coil or not. This is actually available inside all of our tools with scopes as well. It's called the RFI high output test, available in there on pretty much any Ford with a coilover plug. So there's some common far-reaching issues. How about some common codes? So this is based on our data. And I just chose the top 10 codes. And you can see it's there's a lot of 5.4 Tritons in there. 5 liter, there's power stroke right there. There's a power stroke right there. But you can see intake camshaft over retarded, intake cam position over retarded bank 2. A lot of those cam problems. There's another camshaft position in the 345s. We have a lean code there. It's injector circuit on the power stroke on the 7.3 power stroke. So actually there's specific tests just for that are available inside the scan tool as well. And then after all these engine issues, we get down to the first one that's not an engine issue at number 10, which is tire pressure sensor fault. And we're going to see a lot of those when we go and check through the information as well. See, having the information available to you as to what the common failures and common problems are can also help you when it comes to an unfamiliar make, which is what we're trying to do here. So here's an example case study here. This comes from one of our diagnostic reps up in Canada, Paul McCallum. Has been with us for a very, very long time, and very good diagnostics guy. And he came across this out in the field one day. And it was an 08 Ford F-150 with a 5.4 Triton. Of course it did. And what it was is it was brought to a transmission shop in Ontario. And the customer complaint was when leaving an intersection from a dead stop, the truck would shudder and violently vibrate throughout the drivetrain. So they thought it was a transmission problem. The customer thought it was a transmission problem. They thought the transmission was falling out. So they brought it to the trans shop. So the shop owner ran his initial scanner diagnostic on it. There were no codes in the transmission, but there was a P0300 random misfire in the engine. Go figure. And a P0022 intake camshaft timing over retarded in the engine as well. So let's see how they kind of went through this and took a look. So the first thing they decided to do is, well, let's just diagnose the misfire first. If you suspect it's a transmission problem, check for drivability issues first, because they can be part and parcel with each other. So in this 2008 Ford, under functional test, there was a test available called a cylinder contribution test. Now that test has been since been replaced. I believe I'll have to double check on that, but we do have a test that does more than this. It's called a power balance test. We'll look at that a little bit. But they went in and did the cylinder contribution test, which is available at the time, and it's designed to identify cylinders with severe misfires by measuring individual contributions. Individual cylinder values with negative numbers are lower contributors. So if we start here and just have our values here with maybe the truck off or what have you, we see nothing going on, of course, because the truck's not running. Fire the truck up, and then we see, oh, look, negative 36 on cylinder number 3. So that means that cylinder at idle, this is designed only to be at idle, but number 3 was contributing less to the engine. So that means that's where they need to look. So they went and checked out number 3, and they found out that had a bad coil. They did some testing on it, found out a bad coil, replaced the coil, and so your misfire code is gone. That's great. What about the other one? Because it still had that code too, at the P0022. So this is an intake cam position timing over retarded. The comprehensive component monitor monitors the variable cam timing position for over retarded camshaft timing. The test fails when the camshaft timing exceeds the maximum calibrated value or remains in a retarded position and doesn't move. Possible causes could be the cam timing improperly set, continuous oil flow to the VCT piston chamber, VCT solenoid valve stuck open, cam advanced mechanism binding. So something in the variable cam timing. Some diagnostic aids as well as DTC is a functional check of the VCT unit. Diagnose any base engine concerns related to the engine oil pressure or engine timing first. Refer to the workshop manual at section blah, 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 engine system. So they know it's a problem, or it's indicating a problem. They don't know for sure yet, but it's indicating a problem in the variable valve timing system. So they decided to take a road test and observe the data coming out of the VCT solenoid, variable cam timing. This controls the variable valve timing, which was sluggish at the time and sometimes froze at 0. So that means it wasn't really doing what it was supposed to do. So in this case, they decided, well, they're right there on the front of the engine. We can probably get to them fairly easily, and they can swap. The left and right are identical. So they swapped the solenoid side to side to see if it followed, and it did not. Did not follow. No change there. So they looked up a little bit more information in Shopkey as well. So it consists of electric hydraulic position and control solenoid, cam position sensor, and a trigger wheel. Cam trigger wheel is a number of equally spaced teeth equal to the number of cylinders on a bank, plus one extra tooth. 4-cylinder and V8 engines use 4+1, et cetera, et cetera. It's just going to tell you how it works. And then it provides PCM and crankshaft positioning information in 10-degree increments. And then here's how it works down here. It takes your temperature and it sets the timing based on where it needs to be. Actuated by oil. They actually found a tip in there as well, a Ford tip in there. So it's constant oil pressure between 24 to 28 psi is required to properly operate the VCT solenoid. It was recommended to get an oil gauge on the truck. So they put oil pressure gauge on the truck. Oil pressure on the truck was running around 14 psi and occasionally dropping to 0. So what does that mean? It means there's a problem with the oil. If there's not enough oil pressure, we won't activate VCT. We'll have other timing problems because the timing chain won't be, the timing chain tensioners often work on oil pressure as well. So if oil pressure drops, you're going to get weird noises, you're going to get drivability problems, etc. So upon mechanical inspection, they discovered a leaking cam seal was causing oil pressure to drop. So it was leaking out of the cam seal, going right back into the timing chain, because the timing chain is in an oil bath. So it was not holding pressure. The cam seal was leaking. It was squirting right back into the oil bath in the front of the engine. So that was causing dropping oil pressure. They replaced the cam seal, and sure enough, that fixed the problem. And actually, one of the hints was in there in those diagnostic aids under code tips there. So diagnose any base engine concerns related to engine oil pressure. Was the first thing in there. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well. So, like I said, fairly common, proved out on that vehicle for sure that it was definitely a problem with that. Through a misfire code and a cam timing code, which are two of the most common codes on those vehicles. So let's talk scanner stuff. So OEM specific functions for Ford. Engine-related tests, and like I said, a lot of these are going to be related to misfire diagnosis. We have a power balance test, which is the one on the right here. So it's going to have a line graph judging based on cylinder contributions. Are they contributing more or less? And also you can disable each of the injectors individually to see if that is an issue. There's also an automated relative compression test that works with the scanner, and a relative injector flow test that also works with the scanner to give us different, tell us whether or not the injectors are flowing properly and whether or not we have even compression across the engine. There's also the misfire monitor neutral profile correction that needs to be done after any engine work. That allows it to get back to base timing and decide where that is, because it's going to correct that a little bit. There's also a new misfire test that's in there that I actually don't have any screenshots of, but Motor Age actually did a video. I believe it was Motor Age. Someone just did a video for it a couple months ago for us, so you can look that up. Ford misfire test, and then also PMI, which is across many of the models, especially the F series. Once again, due to that sales data, there's way more F series on the road than anything else. And then, of course, that's going to slowly trickle down. But PMI, what that is that is a basically a copy and paste. I need to do this when I replace a module on the vehicle. So basically, leave the old module in the vehicle, copy the configuration data off of it, put the new module in, and paste that configuration data back into the new module on the vehicle. It needs to be done on a lot of different modules on vehicles, so that is being added to the tool as we go. F series got pretty darn really good coverage coming in the spring, filling a lot of gaps there. So PMI is, I've never really heard of it called that anywhere else, and I don't know of too many other manufacturers that require that as part of the service there. So sometimes it's a flash, sometimes it's a VIN or something like that. This PMI is just like a copy and paste function. Works with the scan. Transmission related tests as well. I know this one's especially big on, say, the diesel trucks, transmission shift solenoids, and what transmission it even has in the truck. So without having to take it apart, it's going to tell you what your solenoids are in what hole in that transmission as well. Body related tests, we're going to have the battery monitor system reset. So that is kind of unique to Ford. You do have to reset batteries on multiple different vehicles. But as far as the way Ford's works is, say you're just sitting in the driveway listening to the radio or something, vehicle's not running, all of a sudden the battery voltage gets too low, it's going to start shutting off different modules, and they won't turn back on until there's an 8-hour sleep period. So you turn the vehicle off, it has to rest for 8 hours, then you can turn it back on and everything will work. You can also force it using this battery monitor system reset. So you can go in there and reset the system. It needs to be done whenever the battery is replaced, the BCM is replaced, or whenever instructed by the workshop manual, which would usually be if you had that other issue. And then another one that I found unique in Ford anyways was a wiper motor module calibration. So what that does is it puts, anytime you do any work with the wiper arms on a Focus, pretty sure there's a couple other vehicles this applies to as well, but I really only found it on the Focus. And what happened was, in that later generation before they stopped selling them here, they went away from the wiper linkage, and now they're individual wiper motors. So it's an arm and a motor just directly attached. So you need to tell that motor where the end of the road is, otherwise it'll just keep going off the end of the windshield, and that'll ruin your wiper blades for sure, among other things. So what it's going to do is it puts it in a calibration mode. Then you push the wiper washer switch down 3 times, that they swipe upwards, and then you manually move them. You take your hand and you move them out to where they're 50 millimeters away from the trim on the A pillar. And that's pretty much, if you can see the top of that wiper there, that is almost on the very edge of the windshield. So that is max for the wipers. And that's just telling it, okay, here on the motor is where it stops. Don't go past that. So like I said, there's no linkage to stop it. So you need to tell this encoder in the motor where to stop. So that's found that rather unique. So yes, you need a scan tool to change wipers. There you go. All right, let's go live on the tool. We'll look at a couple scanner functions, and also I want to look through some of the SureTrack information we have available on those 3 models that I picked earlier, just to see what we have. So let's start with the F-150, number 1 seller. And we'll go into scanner, and let's just look at a few things in here. So F series. So go in here, engine. We go into engine, we go to functional tests. We can see under special functions, there is a couple evap tests. Evap system cold soak time bypass. There's that misfire monitor neutral profile correction. There's that power balance test, relative compression test. And there's also a reset keep alive memory. So a few of these tests are specific to Ford, like that power balance test. All right, let me see if it lets me out. So you can go in here and on a real vehicle, it should be a lot more flat. And then if one of the cylinders isn't contributing, you would see the negative number. And then when you go and flip off the injectors, put them on, put them off, you should be able to watch the cylinder go down and up as it goes there as well. So that's not available on everything, but on the ones that it sure is very helpful. Let's see. What else? If I go down to body control module, we will see the battery monitor system reset. So that's available for that. So that's that reset after the fact that I might need to do on the vehicle after my battery goes dead. Let's look at SureTrack information here. So I'm going to load this F-150 and I'm going to go through the different engines. I think it'll be interesting to see. So I had previously picked a 5-liter, right? So that's got 61,858 repairs out of our billions of repair orders. This engine vehicle combination was found on 61,000. And if we take a look on this V8 engine, you can see commonly replaced components on the vehicle. Nothing really sticks out too much, especially if it's a 6-year-old vehicle now. Pads and rotors, that's pretty common. Wheels, battery. Tire pressure monitor stuff, though. Valve stems, tire pressure sensors, that seems fairly common. Wheel hub assembly as well. That seems to be rather high up on the list. Maybe it's a high failure rate there. We go look at the common codes once again. Misfire, 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 misfire. So like what, half of the top 10 codes. Cam position, cat efficiency, camshaft position again, system too rich, right? So all these are really drivability problems. Some of those could be due to oil, etc. But I find that interesting how one set of data says it's this, and then the other set of the data says, yep, I agree. It's pretty high. They're pretty high on the list. Common symptoms: engine doesn't start. Noise heard from brakes. So that's all fairly common. A lot of TPMS lights on. And then top search lookup. So this is what are people putting in this box for this vehicle. Firing order, a lot of them need to know. Cabin air filter, a lot of brakes, timing chains, etc. So that's all the common stuff that you would think. Based on these codes, that seems to make sense to me. Now, if I go up to a different vehicle, though, or not a different vehicle, a different engine. So let's go down to the 2.7 and see. So 60,000, this is 45,000 repairs. Number one on that's a cat code, and then we got a bunch of misfires there, another cat code, exhaust pressure sensor, oxygen sensor. That's your top 10 codes. Once again, wheel hub assemblies, because the hub doesn't change. It's the same vehicle. Let's go to 3-liter, the diesel. So this was, I think this was new for that year, and there aren't a lot of repair orders on it. But we can see ambient air temperature sensor, NOx sensor, crank position once again, misfires once again, turbocharger issues, fuel rail issues. So it seems like a lot of fuel issues on the diesels again. Let's go to the 3.3. 21,000 repairs. Once again, misfires, lots of misfires, ambient air temperatures, system too lean, etc. And let's go to the engine. Go to the 3.5 EcoBoost. 40,000 repairs. And this one seems to have its own problems, right? So the EcoBoost is the 3.5 EcoBoost. It's used in a lot of different vehicles. But we see like oil pressure, oxygen sensor, coolant, over temperature, and then we get to misfire down here, oxygen sensor, catalyst. So this is a good smorgasbord here, and then we get down to our cam position problems down here, and then oil pressure there. So like we said, a lot of things work on oil pressure, so that could definitely be an issue there. Wheel hubs again, rotors, pads, etc. So you can glean a lot of information just by looking at this, just the sure track information as well. And you get that with a up-to-date scan tool. Pretty much any up-to-date scan tool. Let's go to the escape now. So you're going to find a lot of the same things in there on the escape when it comes to the scan tool stuff. So we go to engine, functional tests, and then we see power balance test again, misfire monitor, neutral profile collection. There's the compression, relative compression test, and relative injector flow test. So how these will work is it's going to instruct you through cranking the engine over, and then it will do based on the cam and crank sensors and etc. It'll tell you the compression, and then injector flow. It'll know how much it's flowing the injectors as it's cranking over as well. So those are two specific tests to this. And let's go to Sure Track and see that information. Yeah, see. Oh. All right, so this is the 2 liter, 264,000 repairs. So there's a lot more repairs on these than we had on the F-150. But same thing, pads, rotors, evap purge solenoid valve. That seems absurdly high on that. Higher pressure monitoring system again. And then we'll see why maybe the purge solenoid had a problem, because the number one code is a 1450 and it doesn't give us a definition. But if we go into the code and we go to the OEM test, it does. So it's unable to bleed up fuel tank vacuum. So that is with the evap system. All right, so that is an issue in the evap system. Looks like it was commonly the purge solenoid. Oxygen sensor, evap again, small leak. Wheel speed sensors, turbochargers, misfires, map sensor. So we can see a lot of common issues once again there. So that's a 2 liter. Let's change the engine. Go to the 1.6. And we can see 276,000 repairs. Turbocharger, coolant bypass. There's that evap problem again. Misfire, turbocharger, misfire, evap. We saw that 1450. What's a 1299? So that looks like a coolant maybe. Coolant issue. Let's see. Cylinder head over temperature protection. It says cylinder head temperature. And then the 144C is, looks like evap again. And that is evap mission system purge check valve performance. Yeah, a lot of evap issues on these Ford Escapes. So just by looking at the data from real world information, we can see there's a lot of evap. Because evap's not necessarily going to be specific to the engine. It's going to be more specific to the vehicle. And then last engine here, 281,000 repairs, evap. On that 2.5, man, it's a lot of evap, and then misfired, and then our actuators, throttle actuators, actually, that's drive-by-wire stuff. That's kind of interesting. That shows up there. All right, so just by looking at that data, if I didn't know issues with this vehicle, I now know, I can see common issues with these vehicles for sure. What could be a problem? And the last one we'll go to is the 18 Focus. Last year of the Focus, as we said. So we'll go in here, and that's going to have, under our special functions, power balance test, relative compression, relative injector flow. This one also has the PMI part too. So programmable module installation. So it goes through a VIN verification process. I have to verify the VIN. Of course, I'm in a simulator, so it's not going to have it. And then do I want to read the data from the old module or write data in the new module? I'll read the data. Make sure the original module is still in the vehicle. Turn the ignition on. It's going to pull it. Turn the ignition off. Then go do your repair. Replace the module. When that's done, I'm going to write the new data into the module. I'll install a new module in the vehicle. Hit continue. Turn the ignition switch on. And it's going to write the configuration into the module. And then it should hopefully not give me an error. Simulator, or might just get stuck in that. It may just get stuck. Hold on one second. Oh, good. We're done. All right, so it's all done. Turn the ignition off. Turn the ignition on. And it's done. All right, so that's fairly quick to do that. Let's see. So we got that. Then we come down here to body control module. So this is the one with the wipers, right? So I can go to battery monitor system, wiper motor module calibration. So that's where you go in and it puts it in a learn mode. You move the wipers out to the max and then resets it down. As far as sure track information, we'll do the same thing. So this one defaulted to 2 liter. One of the 2 liters, 332,000 repairs. So you can see once again, tire stuff, spark plugs, evap, 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 lean, catalyst, oxygen sensors, fuel rail pressure, air fuel ratio sensor. So it looks like a lot more oxygen sensor stuff on here. Not so many misfires on those, which I find interesting. Let's change to 1 liter, the little 3-cylinder. Evap again, oxygen sensor, coolant, turbocharger, cylinder 3 misfire, oxygen sensor, crankcase ventilation. So that's kind of some oddball ones, but that was not a very popular engine, 5,900 repairs versus 300,000 repairs on the other ones. Let's come down here and we'll go to the other 2 liter. I think was also not that popular. Yeah, 21,000 repairs on that one. Once again, evap, evap, misfire, misfire, cat, sensor reference voltage, oxygen sensor. Those are kind of some oddballs there. And then if we go to the 2.3, which would be the RS, 2,500. They didn't sell a lot of the RSs, I don't think, that year, but 2,500 repairs on that. Lean, evap, 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 cat, map sensor, turbocharger problems. A lot of turbocharger problems, it looks like, on them. So that's kind of interesting as well. So yeah, the most common engine on that vehicle is going to be that 2 liter that I think they pretty much used for years on those, with that 333,000 repairs on them. So get a really good data set out of that. So hopefully you learned some of the ins and outs of Ford this time. Like I said, we will be continuing with the other manufacturers as we go throughout the year. This is just the first of many. First of many. It's kind of glad I found this because we got plenty of material for the rest of the year just on this. So if you have anything that you have found on Fords for this one specifically, feel free to comment on the video with some of the weird, wild stuff that you might have found that you don't really find anywhere else. That's kind of what we're talking about here. You know, what can we find unique to this manufacturer that you're really not going to see on a different manufacturer? And also, if you have anything else, you know, look me up on Facebook, send me an email, what have you. If you have any stories that you'd like to tell and like to share with people, I'd give you credit for it for sure. And then just, yeah, if you have any more information you'd like to add to the conversation, please feel free to comment below. And with that, that is Ford. And with that, that is our time here today. So make sure you tune in for new diagnostic content every week. We will be premiering a new video every Wednesday at 7 p.m. UK time. So make sure you check it out on the YouTube channel. If you're watching, well, of course, you would be watching this on YouTube, but make sure you subscribe, thumbs up, ring the little notification bell so you know anytime we post new content. And it's youtube.com/SnapOnDiagnosticsUK. With that, time for questions. If you have any questions, just feel free. Once again, if you're watching this on a premiere, just leave it in the live chat and we'll answer those. Otherwise, leave a comment under the video and we will get to those as we monitor those comments as well. So I'd like to thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to learning a little bit more about how you might be able to be more efficient at diagnosing vehicles using some of the information that we've given you today. Hopefully, we'll see you next week. Hopefully you can watch and see you on any of our other videos. Have a good week. Have a good night and take care.